Hi, I'm Charles Dennison, and this is my persuasion speech for Speaking 201. And the topic that I've chosen is the age difference between two people in a relationship. And I chose this topic because last year I was working with a co-worker, had an interesting experience that the co-worker, who is a 35-year-old man, he came in and he was bragging to all his male counterpart co-workers that he had slept with an 18-year-old girl the previous night. And I've found this rather, I guess, just interesting that if an 18-year-old girl chose to sleep with a person 35 years old, it was interesting to me. Well, I mentioned that to I just mentioned it, mentioned it with my wife, and she took a completely different perspective. Her first response was, she was very upset. And she said to me, "Charles, why didn't you say anything to him? I mean, that's wrong what he did. That's almost like him sleeping with a child. That's almost like pedophilia." And of course, I had to explain to her. I explained my perspective is that there was the legal age in the United States and most places around the world is 18 years old. Therefore, they are two consenting adults, and maybe her morals and her ethics are different. She has a different values of ethics, but she really isn't going to be able to impose them upon other people, and really expecting me to. You have to take into consideration also, this is a co-worker. This is somebody I work with every day. And my views are not that necessarily he did something illegal. Maybe perhaps it was morals and ethics involved in this issue. But I think maybe my perspective goes back a little bit further, because my own mother married when she was young, and so I don't see anything wrong with this. I think this is a choice, and it's a choice that more people are moving away from now. People are tending to get married when they're older. I think the average age now is about 28 before people. But back in the 60s, it was not uncommon for people to get married when they were young, when they were 16, for example. And in many states, you can still get married at 16 if you have the consent of the parents. And this is what happened with my mother, is that she it was kind of a romantic story, because actually my father was dating her older sister, if you can imagine, and they dated for about 2 years, and then they broke up. They ended their relationship. But my mother still remembered that any time my father would come over to visit her older sister, she just had this really, she was just infatuated. She just had, it was something that she loved him. She fell in love with my father, and she was only 14 when she first knew him. And of course, later she went to 16, and my grandmother, she had known my father for a couple of years, because she was dating the older the older sister. So it really wasn't. And keep in mind, this was back in the 60s, so it's a different time period also. But going back to the original with the 18-year-old girl, there's nothing illegal that was done here. And I think what this is going to bring me to is an even more controversial part of this persuasive speech, and that I'm going to talk about the case of Mary Letourneau, who was the grammar school teacher who had a sexual relation with one of her students. And and then later there was the Deborah LaFay, where the Deborah LaFay was 23 years old and she slept with a 14-year-old boy. And I don't know all the specifics, but I'm kind of wondering why, after the media and after all the news, that case was dismissed, and nobody ever talked about it again. So this is an issue that still happens today, but maybe it's not really talked about. Well, I think that the most interesting part about the Mary Letourneau is that she had sex with the boy, and he was only, I believe he was 16 at the time, and then she became pregnant. She was convicted of statutory rape and served for 7 years prison. Now the interesting part is that about 3 months ago, me and my wife were watching a program on Dateline, or a program similar to that, and it was actually an interview with Mary Letourneau and her husband. Now, after 7 years of being in prison, they actually stayed in contact all this time, and now they have another child. And when you talk to them, or when you see the interview, you know that they're in love. It's like they knew they were soulmates, if there is really such a thing, and if you want to put it in a romantic perspective. Such a romantic perspective that my wife watches this program, and she just realizes that these two people really believe that they were meant for each other. There was quite a gap in age, and there was the issue of legality. But because it was for romantic purposes, and it wasn't because a man was trying to have sex with a child, such as pedophilia, or vice versa, a woman with a boy child, she found it romantic and acceptable, something that she had thought so disgustingly before, so grossly. So where this leads me, in my perspective, if two people are happy with each other, and they know or they believe that they're truly meant for each other, I really don't think that the difference in age should be a factor, and I really think that our laws are there to protect us, but maybe we need to take a closer look at what we're really protecting. Thank you.